Oh, yeah, this is, I mean, this is definitely a September next year start. Yeah. If we get there. Right. This could take longer, but I'm hoping it doesn't.
I think it's a big piece that I feel like we're still missing. We have the stakeholders and this whole idea of restoring price outside.
You're welcome. No, we did it this morning. And he says,
That was your boy. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
did you hear about, I didn't even tell you about that. One of our students, frequent flyer. I'll text my name, yes, I'll text my name. She's on the hall and she's like, what do you do?
Right. Right.
It's all about the lesson they learned. Thank you.
Good evening. First, can you hear me back? In the back? Yes. Okay, thank you. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Please let me know if you still can hear back there. Yep, I can see it. Thank you. We're going to start the meeting tonight with a little information that Dr. Corey can share based on yesterday's event, which is something that schools don't want to have to do, but had to happen yesterday to be handled. So I'm going to hand the mic to him.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to start off by telling you a little bit about what happened yesterday. Obviously, we had an evacuation that took place yesterday afternoon, about 1:50. We had our buses rolling up and starting to evacuate our district. We evacuated at a pre-K through 12th grade level at that point. We had 2 initial incidents, and I can't really go into too many details at this point because we have active investigations going on regarding those 2 incidents. The first incident was basically, in a nutshell, a series of words that were projected on a whiteboard or a smartboard, and they were concerning to us, obviously. We were investigating that incident and looking into what actually occurred. We did not have any evidence any physical evidence at that point in time. That occurred approximately 1 o'clock, a little bit before 1 o'clock. As in the process, we activated our emergency response team, began the process of putting things in place to take care of anything that we should need based on the information that we would receive. At about 1:45, we had a second incident occur, which was a direct threat to the district. That is when we put the emergency response system into place and we evacuated our building. And again, our buses rolled up at approximately 1:50. Our students were out of the building at that point in time, and they immediately loaded the buses or evacuated to either a parking lot or the track, depending on the building at that point in time. I do want to say that our staff, our faculty and staff, handled things very well. They followed the action plan. We did a really nice job. We had all of our students home approximately by 3:20 and accounted for. Secretarial staff played an important role, administrative team, teachers, aides, assistants, bus drivers, custodial staff, everybody had all hands on deck, and we're working through that process to make sure that our students were safe. Again, safety is the main concern, the number one concern of our students, so we wanted to make sure that everybody was accounted for. That's a process, a time that takes place to do that. And also, the communication piece is very important. If we communicate out too promptly to the community at that point in time, we have all kinds of logistical things that we need to deal with. Like, for example, getting our law enforcement here on campus so that we can appropriately investigate and clear the building. Our building wasn't cleared until approximately 6:30 last night. We had two dogs that actually swept the building with multiple officers, and they also followed up with that again this morning, the perimeter outside. So we have, at this point, made sure that we obviously we wouldn't have been in school today if we thought that it was a severe concern to us. But we have heightened our security a little bit. Travis Dunn is our SRO. He's here. He's been involved in it. Also, Wayne County Sheriff's Department, as well as the New York State Police, were involved yesterday. So we are currently conducting an internal investigation and also have an investigation with law enforcement at this point in time. And more details will come out as we move through that.
All right, thank you, Dr. Corey. I'm looking at our list. It's public forum time. I've got 6 speakers. We have this as a half hour, so this works out easy math, a maximum of 5 minutes each. Our Vice President, Mr. Nodine, will give a signal to the speaker at the 4-minute mark, so that helps you to wrap up what you may be wanting to share. And so I'm going to call you down. We're going to ask you to still keep your mask on to speak, but step right up to the mic, and if you have to adjust it in any way, please do. So our first speaker on the list, Chris Heisel, please.
It's not normally my style to speak quickly, but I'm going to try because I have just about 5 minutes, I think, to go. So, the Pfizer vaccine has been given the go-ahead by the FDA and the CDC for emergency use in the 5 to 11 age range. And health officials are moving quickly to encourage vaccination. There is also talk of mandating them for schools eventually. It may be wise first to take a slow approach to study and consider decisions regarding the vaccine and how it can impact our children in the future. We all share a desire to advocate for what is best for the students, and I thank you for the opportunity to share a few thoughts I have regarding the vaccine. As a nurse, I have worked in pediatric office and have given many vaccines to children myself. Vaccines through the years have not come without risks, but generally, they have benefited children and adolescents greatly. Vaccines in the past have taken years to study and develop, and this is not the case with the mRNA vaccine we have for COVID-19. These vaccines have been developed and brought to market in less than a year, and the companies making them have no liability for adverse events or deaths that are occurring. In my study of the clinical trials Pfizer has presented to the FDA panel for consideration, there were 2 months in duration, and they were a small sample size of 5 to 11-year-olds. The trials were in no way long enough to determine any kind of safety in the short or long term, and the vaccines being used in the 12 to 17-year-olds have already been showing adverse reactions in the few short months they've been given. As a means of researching the effects of vaccines, VAERS is a good place to start. VAERS is a website that documents voluntary reports of adverse reactions to vaccines and has been doing so for over 30 years. Theirs is run jointly by the CDC and the FDA. The following are a few highlights from theirs for the week ending October 22nd. There have been more COVID vaccine adverse events since December 2020 than all vaccines combined since 1990 to present. In the 12 to 17-year-old range, specifically, there have been 22,584 total adverse events reported, including 1,383 rated as serious and 28 reported deaths, 2 of them being suicides. Some specific adverse events in theirs for 12 to 17-year-olds include life-threatening anaphylaxis, 59 reports, myocarditis and pericarditis, 547 reports, and blood clotting disorders, 126 reports. All 3 of these groups of events have been found from the Pfizer emergency use vaccine, and all in this extremely short period of time from June until present. I think we need to...
Chris, yeah, one more.
One more minute?
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to skip over. Lastly, we should note that the 17 and under group of children have extremely low risk of death from COVID-19. COVID cases in children and teens are rarely fatal unless there are underlying chronic medical conditions. Protecting that small group from risks is very important. However, for the much larger population of children and adolescents, more time and study is needed before we begin vaccinating and putting all our children at greater risk with even more adverse events that we're already beginning to see in the 12 to 17-year-old group. Thank you guys for your time, and I hope that we consider some of these points in the future when we're making decisions regarding vaccines and mandates. Thank you.
Chris, do you have that in a copy that you can send to the superintendent? Please. Yes, thank you. We'll be able to see where that can help us. Thank you. Next speaker on our list is Carolyn Camacho.
Hello, good evening. So I just have a few points that I wanted to discuss. The first one was, I think every parent was happy with the response yesterday in evacuating all the students safely. That's everybody's biggest concern. I do think that there was a delay in the phone call going out, and it just tacks on to safety when you have young kids going home and you don't know, you're at work, and you get a phone call 5 or 10 minutes before they're going to arrive home, and there's no one there to receive them. That's a safety concern as well. So there's also a problem there. And I think that part of the issue that parents get upset and you see the anger is that when issues are brought up, it feels like there's a lack of accountability and justifications are made. So it turns into a feeling of us versus them, which does not create a good environment to get where we need to be for our students, which is why we're all here. So I feel like we're just not in a good place where everyone is working collaboratively, and that's what we need. Then next is the education plan right now for quarantine students is absolutely abysmal. There is no education plan for quarantine students. Between my 3 kids, we've gone through 4 quarantines. My daughter was quarantined back to back. She was back in school for 4 days before she got quarantined again. She is an excellent student in advanced classes, freshman class president, a sport every season. She really cares about her grades and strives and works very hard and is barely passing some of her classes because she can't just look at a piece of paper that is posted online and teach herself this material. If that's how kids learned, then no one would send their kids to school. We just show them materials online and they just teach themselves. And, you know, Zooming with a teacher after school is offered with some teachers, but when you have 5 classes, which teacher do you Zoom with? And I don't think it's fair to the students who are quarantined through no fault of their own that there is not a better plan in place for them. You know, she came back after her first quarantine to a math test and failed it. She's not allowed to do corrections. The teacher does not accept extra credit. Went immediately back out on quarantine and had to come back to another math test. So that class she's barely passing by the skin of her teeth. And it is really distressing to the students. I know some kids are not super concerned with their grades potentially, but you know, some students are, and it's extremely stressful for her. It's a huge source of anxiety, and it's not fair to the students. Which brings me to the test to stay option that was rolled out by the New York State Department of Health. And what is the district's stance on that? Has there been meeting with the County Department of Health on whether that is going to be an option for us? Where the students who have an exposure can do a rapid test for 7 days in a row. If they're negative, then they do not need to quarantine and can stay in school. And another thing I was curious to know is, of the students in school who are quarantined, what % of them have actually tested positive for COVID due to an exposure at school? Because I feel like we're quarantining perfectly healthy students. It's detrimental to their social health, to their academics, and as far as I know, I'm not saying no one has, but no one that I know of that's been quarantined has tested positive due to an exposure at school. So I'm wondering what the statistic is on that. How many students have tested positive? And that was all I had tonight.
Thank you for bringing these thoughts to us. Thank you. I didn't say if you see us writing, it's to be able to keep accurate notes.
Sure.
Thank you. Our next is Fran Britton.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to say that being part of this school here, I'm proud after yesterday's situation, okay? I'm happy to be here, but yesterday, everything went so smoothly. Everybody that works within the school district came together and did a fantastic job to secure the safety of the children and the staff within the school system. And Dr. Corey needs credit here because that man was on the buses, checking with the drivers, assuring that we had all students accounted for before we even left the facility. You can't say enough, I can't, for everybody that pitched together and really come across for these kids and the staff here. So I really think the board needs to be proud of what you have right here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Fran. And I think it's a shared agreement. Safety is first here. And the situation certainly yesterday. Sandra Britton? No? Did I see it? No, thank you. Okay. Jolene Bliss?
Good evening. The points that I make tonight, I would like to request a written response to them. I believe you all have my email, and if you need it, I can provide that. Of course, there's the concerns that people have been bringing up. I'm kind of going to go in a little bit of a different direction. Something that's been bothering me for a while is the district's lack of transparency. If you were to look at our website, there is zero information about anything out there. There's no staff directory. There's no budget information. There's no property tax report card. There's no transparency reports. There's no emails for board members. We are actually in violation of open meeting law, which states that if records that are scheduled to be discussed during an open meeting are available under FOIL or consist of a proposed resolution, law, rule, regulation, policy, or any amendment thereto, the record is required to be made available to the extent practicable online and in response to a request to inspect or copy prior to or during the meeting. I work with a lot of school districts, and they are very transparent, very transparent. They use programs called board docs, along with some other document programs, but it's very easy to find the information that you're looking for. I am curious about some fiscal stuff that's going on with the district, as you would probably expect from myself, and I'm not able to find any information, nothing. And I know what I'm looking for. One thing that I heard from the last board meeting is that our school lunch program, second year that we run in a deficit. I was the treasurer for this district for 12 years. Never ever were we in a deficit. I don't understand how we went from that when we were getting letters from the state saying you have too much money. Give us a letter telling us why you have too much money. We went from that to running a deficit for 2 years in a row. And I can't even look at any records to try and wrap my head around that because we have zero transparency. It's just unacceptable. And I don't understand, like, there isn't even a staff director. I can't even go and figure out what teachers we have at the district. There's nothing on our website. I'm not sure why we don't want to provide this kind of information to our community. We're really keeping our community at arm's length. And I think that's part of the problem that we're having, is the Board of Education was put there by the community members. You know, you're here for us. So why don't we get to know what's going on with this district? We feel like we are very, very disconnected. Some other things that are concerning just from looking on the outside, since Mr. Corias took over the administrative turnover, if you as a Board of Education were to look at that, the administrative turnover rate, no wonder we're having such a hard time really succeeding as a school district. We've turned over a business official, a high school principal, an athletic director. I think there's another one in there. We've really turned over a lot of administration. How do you successfully run a school district if you don't have solid leadership at the top? It's just not a good look for the district. A concern that I still have with the transportation department is the fact that we don't have a leader there. We have a head bus driver. That head bus driver drives a bus. So if there's a bus accident, who's handling that? Winter's coming. A bus is stuck in the snow. Who's handling that? Our driver that's out driving because we don't have enough drivers, which I understand there's a shortage. Those are real concerns. Do we have a plan? The plans that we've had have not proven to work out very well for us. I think we really need to look at these plans and make sure they can be executed better. We're doing a very poor job of that right now. And that's not fair to the safety of our students, safety of our staff. It's not fair to put them in that position. So I think we really need to think about some of these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Flip the page. Mrs. Parkinson? Arlene?
It's Ariel, sorry.
Ariel, what did I say?
Nobody
I'm
ever says Ariel.
I'm sorry.
Good evening. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk. I want to start by saying that I'm so sorry. I want to start by saying that I am not only a parent in the district, but also an alum of the district. I've moved specifically to Redmond because I love this district so much. And I currently have 2 children, about to have 3 children in the district. I appreciate so much I can't, like, I'm gonna start crying just thinking about it. The staff yesterday kept my kids calm, they kept them safe, and there's not enough of me that can appreciate and say how much I appreciate that they did that for them. It just reinforces how much I love this school district and everybody within it. However, I did not receive a phone call until my 10-year-old sons were already sitting, thank goodness, in my grandmother's home and had them for 10 minutes. That's scary to me. She had just 5 minutes earlier gotten back from the dentist. 5 minutes. If they'd gotten there 10 minutes earlier, there would have been nobody home. And I didn't even know they were on their way home yet. So I understand. I understand you're under a lot of pressure. And I totally get it. I'm a teacher myself. I can't even imagine what was going through the teachers' heads yesterday and what was going through your heads yesterday while you were trying to take this all in and handle it. But as a parent, it's terrifying to me that I had no idea that my kids were on the way home, that they were already there. I know that you guys were under a lot of pressure yesterday, but if there's some way, something that can be done, if this were to happen in the future, so that we get that heads up. Even if it's a half an hour, I work half an hour away. Even if it's just a half-hour warning, hey, your kids are getting on a bus right now. You need somebody to be there. Just so I know that my kids, because they're safe, I know, I trust this school district to keep them safe, to make sure, like it happened, like I would know and it would happen, that they are out there, that they're going to be evacuated. I appreciate that so much. But then I feel like their safety got put in jeopardy a second time because I had no idea. These kids are my true world, they're my life. I need to know that you guys are gonna let me know that I need to be there for them. Just like you were there for them too. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. That concludes our public forum opportunity. We're going to move on to...
Mr. Bayside signed up to talk.
I'm not... Did I miss someone?
You did.
Who did I miss?
Elizabeth Becker.
Okay, that was merely a question mark. So... Yeah. Elizabeth, so that we can make plans, it's going to be now more beneficial as we move forward to have an affirmative yea or nay, yes or no, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to touch on a couple things that I think other people have already talked about a little bit, but just to reiterate. So I think a big, and I know I've said this before, sticking point with the district right now is that parents feel like there's really a lack of communication about what's going on. Yesterday, my kids called me when they got home, and it was 45 minutes later before I got a call from the school. So my kids were, and granted they're the first kids off the bus, but that's 45 minutes that they were home, and they were both supposed to stay after, so I was not expecting them for another hour and 15 minutes. And then with quarantines, I know that we've addressed this before, but there doesn't really seem to be any resolution, either in action or in writing. We're not really seeing any changes or hearing about any changes on the horizon. So if it's possible, I would really like to I would like some communication either directly or through the whole district about what the plan going forward is. My oldest son has been quarantined 3 times this year. The last 2 were back-to-back. He was home for 4 days in between his 2 quarantines. The second time he actually had COVID, or the third time, excuse me, the last time he actually had COVID and was actively sick in bed for about a week. And the whole time the teachers were giving him zeros on his assignments, and I actually had to reach out, and he tried to and didn't get anywhere, so I had to reach out and say, you're giving him zeros. He's in bed with 103 fever. He's not doing his work. So you need to give a little bit of leeway, and there's just really no communication, it doesn't seem, with how that's being handled. And I don't feel like, as a freshman in high school, he should be able to reach out to his teachers himself and get that taken care of without me having to intervene. So on that note, when he came back off of his second quarantine, so ultimately he was about 3.5 weeks, so 4 weeks span, he was home with no instruction, just some random posts or some things that he could do from home, but not really any instruction or any idea of what's going on. He went back the first day and had a test in Spanish, which he failed, and the Spanish teacher told him he needed to try harder. And then she messaged me saying that he wasn't staying after for help. And then, again, I had to reply that he was home, so he couldn't stay after for help. Science, he went back and he had 4 weeks, almost 4 weeks worth of labs to make up, because you can't do labs at home. So he had the 2 weeks left in the semester to make up 4 weeks worth of labs, along with all of his other work. And then geometry, I was able to teach him myself, because I'm a fairly good math person, but not all kids have that, and I work full-time also, so I'm coming home at the end of the day to teach. It's just basically a sheet of her notes with no real explanation of how to do it. So we're having to go through that every night. It's just not a good system, and it's not fair to the kids. He's in all the advanced classes, and he's normally a straight A student, and he's barely passing his classes right now. So something has to give and me to do better for the kids. Also, I know that I've reached out to some of the building principals about the mask breaks, and I know that there's a fear of COVID and people don't want to get it. I understand that. But the kids should be able to take masks off during the day and have the mask breaks that they're supposed to be giving. One of my kids asked for a mask break, and his teacher told him that if he's not turning blue, he doesn't need a mask break yet. And I know that there were other parents that reached out to the school about that, but again, we didn't hear anything back about that or how it was addressed. And really, I think that's the big thing is I know this is hard. I know that everyone wants to do what's best for the kids, but parents are asking about concerns and asking for them to be addressed, and we're not receiving any real communication back. And it's frustrating, and I think that we can definitely do better, and I would like to see some effort, at least, from the school district.
Thank you, Elizabeth. A lot of notes are taken. We'll have the opportunity to address those. Thank you. Okay, now with the public forum coming to an end, we'll move on. Board agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the regular minutes of October 20th? Okay, Ms. Allen, second. Mr. Nodine. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, moving on to the financial reports. Treasurer's report, we have two treasurer's reports, August of 21, September 21. We have warrants of the same periods, and then the first quarter extra class central treasurer's report. Do I want to take all or any? Do I hear a motion? All. Ms. Allen, motion for all. Second, Mrs. Cook. Okay. All those in favor?
I have a question
Aye.
before we vote.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Just after a comment that was made here tonight, are these publicly posted for the district to see after they're approved? Or where do we keep this stuff? Or are they not public? And I don't know. That's what I'm asking. It's not public information? Okay. Okay, so it is public information? Okay, I just didn't know. I just wanted to ask. And then I had one other question too. Because this isn't done in-house anymore, is it better to send back, I guess, is it possible to ask questions about it at the meeting, or should we send it back as soon as we receive it? I'm assuming do you have to go back to OCs to ask?
Depends on the question.
Yeah.
Oh, if it's something simple about an actual transaction. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you're asking, because I had a bunch here, and
Oh,
you guys
sorry.
go back and forth till we get them asked. So the question was whether or not these can be seen. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, right.
Yeah, and also, if there's questions about this report, you were asking whether or not you could ask when the board packet goes out, or do we wait to this point?
Well, because I didn't know, they're not being processed in-house. We had this conversation before. Sometimes we get them a little later. Am I like super muffled? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can even have,
So, I just didn't know if it was still comfortable to ask at the meeting if we came across something or you need more time.
certainly
to
comfortable.
possibly go back.
If there's a question, it's got to come whenever you see it.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
It's just kinda
We can
jumped
seek
in my
the
head.
answer.
Thank you.
Okay, so we had a motion by Mrs. Allen, a second by Mrs. Cook. Let's go again. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, all set. All right. We have no unfinished business and reports, so now we're down to the new business, our certified staff. We've got A through G on certified staff. Do we have any questions? Do we want to go?
I make a motion for 1A through G.
You got it.
I would make a motion for A1 through G.
Okay, a motion for all of them, A through G? No?
I'm willing to amend, Sue, if you tell me what you
Yeah,
need.
what do you want to amend?
I'm gonna B through G.
B through G,
Yeah.
okay? I hear B through G. Is Kate?
It's fine.
Okay, Kate's got a motion for B through G. Okay, we come back to A. And do I get a second? Okay, I got yeah, Sue did say. Hey, you guys got to make a bigger wave. You got to put my head on a swivel. Okay. All right. So we got B through G. First and a second. Motion and second. All those in favor?
Can I say something
Yes.
first? I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Smiley because I think he did a phenomenal job with the yearbook. And it was really nice to see Mrs. Witherall step up to take over it because I think it's a really difficult job. And I think he did a great job, so thank you.
All right. Yeah. All right. So all right. B through G. Got discussion set?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay. All right, let's go back to A under certified staff. Do I have a motion? Mr. Nodine, the motion?
I'll second.
Okay. We got a second from Mrs. Madigan. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? One abstention, okay. All right, down to classified staff. We have 3A through C on there, the amended version. Do I have a motion? Ms. Allen with a motion, Ms. Cook with a second of A through C, right, Mrs. Allen? Yeah, okay. All right, any discussion? No discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? All right. We're down to now under 3, the CSE recommendations, CPSE recommendations. Do I have a motion? Okay. Mr. Utes, a second. Mr. Curtis? Okay. Any discussion? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Can I ask Mrs. Herbst a question?
Yeah. Speak loud.
Julia. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just had a question because there's not many. I was just wondering how the COVID situation, are they still virtual meetings?
Yes.
I'm just wondering, do you see attendance any better by being virtual?
No.
Does that mean that you see it as worse?
Yes.
Okay. Not really the answer I was looking for, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So in fairness to everybody, the discussion was whether or not those meetings with Mrs. Herbst for the CSE and the CPSE are virtual. They are. Her attendance is not what she'd like it to be for those attending, but she still has to go forth with them. So thank you. So we had a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. All right, adoption of the tax collector's report 2021-22. Do I have a motion? Mrs. Ale, you're good on the motions. All right, second, Mrs. Cook is being with you with the second. Any discussion on that? No discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Correspondence. The tax collection report? It's in the packet. Right. That does not require a vote. It's just for our own correspondence and information. Administrative report.
Okay, does anyone on the board have any questions regarding the updates that you had from the building level and directors? No. Okay.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure. Great.
I really, really love these administrative reports. I just love hearing about, all the positive things that are happening amidst, a very struggling time. So, thank you, administrators, for, putting this out here and really supporting the kids. And I just really appreciate having them ahead of time and, that I can really get my finger on the pulse. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just a couple updates for us. We are in the negotiation process with the CSEA unit. We had an initial meeting with the labor relations, myself and our business administrator, Mr. McDonald. We have identified the person that will be negotiating on behalf of the district as Bob Reyna. He will be meeting with the district's team on Friday, 3 board members and myself. So 3 board members will be there on Friday to discuss the next steps and where we are as far as on our side of the conversation. No other units are in discussion with the district at this time, but we have received some requests for information. So we anticipate those other unit members contacting us in the next couple months. As far as a public relations and communications specialist, we have reached out to BOCES to look at someone who would be working with our district on a full-time basis for communicating out. Basically, it's a BOCES coaster that we purchase into a service that allows for multiple areas of communication. So they have somebody on staff that is a social media expert, somebody who is written print expert, someone else who is maybe a crisis person, and they have a team of people that would be working with our district specifically. They have interviewed several candidates and they have come up short in their last round. So I believe they placed offers and just were not able to hire those individuals. So they have reopened the search and we are currently in the process at this point. So the position has been reposted by BOCES and we are looking for some short-term support from BOCES at this point. So we've reached out to the people who are in charge of that, specifically Shannon Marshall over at Wayne BOCES, Wayne's Figure Lake. And we're looking for some kind of short-term support, and they're working through that process. They're actually working in collaboration with another district as well. They're in the same situation that we are. As far as transportation, we actually had one applicant recently. We interviewed and offered the position. They accepted the position. They were actually on the board agenda to be appointed this evening. Yesterday, they called and declined the offer because their current employer offered more money. So that's unfortunate for us. We are in the same place that we were prior to a couple weeks ago. Okay, so we have a digital equity survey, which you should have probably received, and I believe it's posted as well at this point. I'm not 100% sure, Cindy, is that posted? No? Okay. So the digital survey, the Digital Equity Survey is a series of 9 questions that come from State Education Department. They are requiring districts to basically have 100% participation rate. So I really encourage you to go into that survey and participate in that survey. It should not take you long. It's a very simple survey. If you do not have the link to it, you can certainly contact myself, Cindy Hay, and we can get you in touch with the proper person for that. If you do not have technology, then you can certainly give us a call, and we're happy to supply you with a paper copy and help you out in that area as well. The survey is mandated by the state, basically. They're requiring all schools to do this. It basically talks about what access to technology is. And it's very, very simple, very, very short, and important. So we need to encourage as many people to participate in that as possible. As far as, let's see, but before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about our strategic plan. So we have had our strategic plan development sessions, number 1 and 2 at this point. So I just have a statement that I wanted to read out loud at this point. Basically, this is just some communication out to where we currently are. So the Red Creek Central School District Strategic Planning Council met on Tuesday, October 19th and Wednesday, November 10th. The Planning Council worked with the University of Rochester Strategic Planning Team to continue its work to develop the district's next strategic plan. The Planning Council members continue to include the superintendent, district administration, teachers, staff members, students, and parents. Planning Council members continue to review and analyze data by identifying strengths and weaknesses. Council members work together to review and analyze school-level programs, extracurricular activities, and athletic offerings, district programs and services, and partnerships with organizations and agencies in comparison to similar and benchmark districts. The Planning Council members also reviewed and analyzed the New York State assessments and Regents exam results as they are compared to other districts. Planning Council members looked closely at subgroup performance in comparison to other districts. Subgroups included students with disabilities, ethnically diverse students, economically disadvantaged students, and free and reduced price lunch students. Planning Council members reviewed and analyzed the enrollment, demographic, and financial data for the Red Creek Central School District and the benchmark districts. Council members also took a look at high school course enrollment trends, including equitable access for all students into all courses, as well as our overall discipline data. Finally, council members looked at SAT results and graduation results, graduation rates for the Red Creek Central School District and also the benchmark districts. The Planning Council members also invested the time to read 3 prepared reports: program report, perception report, and survey report. The 3 reports were inclusive of information reviewed from the school report card, the district, and community stakeholders. Planning Council members read the 3 reports, identified strengths and weaknesses, and shared their findings. The Planning Council members identified those areas that need to be considered in developing the district's new strategic plan. They also considered the big rock topics, which will be the basis for identifying objectives, initiatives, and goals. The work will continue during the next season when Planning Council members will develop a draft plan. The Superintendent and Planning Council members will present a shared plan with all stakeholder groups during the first few months of 2022, and it is expected that the objectives, initiatives, and goals will begin being addressed during the spring of the summer of 2022, after all has been made aware of our overall plan. That's kind of an update of where we are with our strategic plan. All right, and last but not least, I wanted to ask our principals to join me up here. Just a few words about our tutoring program that we are in the process of implementing. We have put together our thoughts and structure for our tutoring program in response to some of the regression that students have had during the COVID period, the last 19 months. We have put together a plan in all 3 buildings. You'll notice that there's a lot of things in the 3 buildings that are very similar, but due to the nature of the different buildings, they will obviously have to be tailored towards those areas. So starting off, we can have Mrs. Hinman.
Thank you. So we've been working together to address the deficits academically that our students are facing due to COVID. So there are two positions that we're looking at in each building. The COVID support coordinator job is the same for all three of us. That position will coordinate assigning students to an instructor, communicating with the instructor to ensure the students are attending and following the protocols set forth, communicating with families as needed, and recruiting students for the program, creating an organizational spreadsheet to track student attendance, participation, monitoring attendance and progress, call families as needed. For example, if a student misses, finding out where they're at and what's going on so we can try to provide them with some help. And also if a student is not complying with the protocols, checking in with instructors, ensuring that students are accessing services, maintaining student privacy. And this position does report to each building administrator. The stipend rate for this for the rest of the school year would be $2,000. At this point in the high school, I have 3 potential interested. Moving on. The high school position, to qualify as a student, any high school student who is failing one or more identified subjects for the high school, we are targeting Regents level courses and graduation requirements. The student is required to complete 50% or more homework. And a student could also qualify if there's a grade discrepancy, and I heard a few of you talk about your honor students that aren't doing so well. Those students could qualify for this program as well. So for example, if you have a 90 student that's now getting a 70 due to the COVID stressors on them, they could qualify for this program as well. We are requiring at the high school that the students do stay after and get extra help with their teachers first before participating in this program. We would ask students to participate twice a week in 1-hour sessions. It would be virtual, so it would be through Google Meet, and they'd be required to keep the camera on and to participate. We ask students to commit for a 10-week academic session and to communicate with the instructor in case they have to miss for something, maybe Mondays nights is always ice hockey or whatnot, to communicate with the instructor if they needed to miss or to readjust. We, as a district, we're seeking at the high school, 1 teacher per subject area. At this time, I only have 1 interested teacher, and that's a possible. The teacher requirements is that they have to be licensed in that certification area. The pay was $35 per hour. They would work 1 to 2 hours per night. It would be Monday through Thursday. And additionally, we are compensating an additional 30 minutes planning for every hour taught. The teachers are able to instruct from virtually in home or here at school, and we ask that they also commit to the full quarter of instruction and focus on course completion for our students. Each session would have no more than 10 students in that tutoring session, and we can adjust as needed if a teacher needed to teach multiple sessions to meet the needs of the students. Our tutoring sessions ran concurrently with the second quarter, the third quarter, and the fourth quarter. So that's what we're looking at for those positions in the high school. Again, I have 3 potential interested for the coordinator position, but only 1 teacher, and this was put out Monday afternoon, and our deadline is tomorrow. So I'm a little concerned about the interest in this at this point, but on the back end, a lot of work has been put in to set forth a structure to provide some more support for our students. Mr. Van Orman, I'll turn over to you for middle school.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely, I hope I can answer it for you.
What would the hours be that you'd be offering the second?
So right now we set them from 4 to 6, but we understand as an administrative team, we may need to be more flexible about that. We may have kids in sports, we may have teachers that drive a little farther, so I think that there is a little bit of flexibility there. And so at this point, I think we're willing to try to meet the needs of our students and try to provide as much support as we can for them. That's really the essence of this. We've gone back and forth and really tried to construct what we think could help those students, because there are some academic gaps due to COVID and we need to address those. So I hope that answers. Yes?
There's a lot of kids that aren't even off the bus by 4 o'clock, so that might be a big concern.
Yeah, we may have to have some flexibility with that. Absolutely. Ms. Van Orman?
Okay, as Mr. Corey had indicated, some of the programs that I will be speaking about are very similar to what Ms. Hinman just mentioned at the high school level. So of course, again, at each building level, we'll have one coordinator position, outline the same duties that Ms. Hinman just spoke about. It's the same pay rate, the $2,000 stipend for the remainder of this, for the entire 21-22 school year. With the same duties, coordination, facilitating between getting students signed up, between getting teachers and students connected. Right now at the middle school, I received one letter of interest to fill that position. And again, the postings expire this Friday, so they went out on Monday and they expire on Friday. For the middle school COVID support program, again, this is targeted at middle school students, grades 6 through 8, just like Ms. Hinman talked about. Kind of first priority given to students that might be failing one or more courses or have a large grade discrepancy from prior years where they might be a 90 student down to a 70 student at this time, from various reasons. Could be COVID related, quarantine related, or just a general decrease in academic performance. We do want to see those students are completing at least 50% of their homework, and that they have started to utilize that 2:30 to 3:30 after school time with their teachers to be eligible for those programs. Again, the session would be 1-hour sessions virtually 2 times a week. As Ms. Hinman said, the original design was between 4 and 6 p.m., but we know that that may not be the most ideal time for all families and students, so that does have some flexibility, of course, throughout there. The subject areas that the middle school would focus on would be English language arts, mathematics, social studies, science, and Spanish. Those really are considered our core 5 subject areas at middle school. So the teacher requirements, similar, looking for licensed teaching certificates at either grade levels or the subject area, depending on which is more appropriate. $35 an hour, 1 to 2 hours a night, with an additional compensation of 30 minutes of planning time. Teachers would conduct these sessions virtually from either here at the school or at home. The same 10-week marking periods apply. Both commitment from the student and from the faculty for those. The focus, of course, would be on kind of course completion. So you're keeping up with the work, getting some reteaching, some clarification from those teachers of record for students that might just need that extra time to understand some of the academic expectations. We would limit each teacher to a 10 student maximum caseload at one time, so they would have 10 students on their load. And again, like Ms. Hinman said, there would be 3 remaining 10-week chunks the rest of this school year, starting right around Thanksgiving for 10 weeks, right after the start of February till the beginning of April, and then from April until June for our three quarters that are remaining. At this time at the middle school, I have received 0 postings, 0 letters of interest from faculty and staff for those postings, which also expire on Friday. Mr. Taylor?
Good evening. The elementary piece is very similar to the middle and high school. We have a few differences, of course, because we know the students are not going to be able to quite maintain the same amount of rigor for a full hour. We're looking at half-hour pieces, and we're going to focus on ELA and math. That's really our strong focus for our elementary students, looking at ELA and math. We're using our benchmark data so all of our students are benchmarked multiple times throughout the course of the school year. We're using that data to set up our groups and use those groups after school. Our hours for after school currently, we're looking at 5 to 7. You know, it's a little difficult for our elementary students. Some of them are on the bus until 4:45-ish, and then many of them participate in the after-school program too that runs until 5 o'clock. So we want to make sure that we have those options for those students as well. So 5 to 7 for both ELA and math, different pieces. we're looking at least, we're asking at least one teacher per grade level. The same compensation rate of $35 an hour plus a half hour of additional planning time at the same rate for each hour taught after school for our students. And we're asking, so the elementary is trimesters, so our first trimester ends at approximately Thanksgiving, and the next one will be mid-March, and then to the end of the school year. So we'll be asking students to commit to those, and the teachers to commit to those. So we have the coordinator position, the COVID support coordinator position, that is at the same rate that Mr. Hinman, or Mrs. Hinman, Mr. Norman spoke about, and then the instruction positions as well. Currently at the elementary building, I do not have any applicants looking for that position right now.
Okay, thank you. Principals, for your opportunity to provide your information that you did. I hope that you had some meaningfulness to some of the questions that came tonight. Yes, Ms. Cook.
So, if you can't fill the teacher positions, would you be willing to hire a certified teacher outside of the district? I mean, I know there's a real importance for it to be the teacher that the students are used to working with, but if it's a tutoring situation, just like if you had a student who was home tutor, that would not be your regular teacher, but it would be somebody that was certified in the content area, and it would allow you to keep supporting those students. So would that possibly be an option if no one in-house wants to take those positions?
Yeah, great question. I don't know if everybody heard in the back, so I'll just repeat the question real quick. Mrs. Cook's question is, if we do not have any a significant amount of people who are interested in tutoring internally, if we would open that to an external search. The answer to that is yes, we will do that if we're not able to fill that internally. We certainly understand the importance of it, and we actually have some very good tutors that have worked with our district for several years, generally done through a BOCES program. They are not able to accommodate our need right now because they're dealing with this in every school, among other things. So we will certainly outreach and open the posting externally if needed.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Did somebody have any questions? What kind of time frame is that going to be though if we have to go outside? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's most likely a 2-week time frame, but we could do it in real time. So if somebody applies, we can pick them up, or like say somebody, we'll use Kyler for example. So if someone applies for ELA in Kyler, most likely you could pick that person up while you're still open for other people because, there's probably a need for more than one tutor there.
Okay, thank you.
Brad, I got a question.
Yes.
So how many weeks are we talking altogether?
For tutoring?
30?
30
weeks.
30 weeks.
2 times a week? Is that what we're talking? So 60 sessions?
It's fluid, it could change every 10 weeks, Mr. Curtis. Some of the students could be re-identified, added in at the end of each 10-week session based on an increased need or something that might be identified during the course of the year.
Do we then increase the staff as well? So if it was 10 kids, but now we have 20, we're now looking for an additional person that we're having trouble filling one.
That would be correct.
Yeah, that would be considered certainly. And the other thing, maybe to answer some of the questions, just like we do with board, the superintendent has, if somebody applies and it's before the next board meeting, we don't have to wait to get them in. He can approve and we can get them going as soon as possible. So, any other questions? More?
Yeah, I have one more. So is this program, from what I understand, we're still currently holding academic ineligibility. So has that been considered in this process?
Those students that are academically ineligible would be eligible for this program.
No, that's not. Is the student still academically ineligible if they're in this program?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you sign up, you're going to meet in these sessions for X amount of weeks, you're still academically ineligible during your time during this period?
They're ineligible until their grade becomes 65 or higher in high school.
At any time during The 10 weeks?
So I'm actually working with my BLT right now on revising that so that students can get off quicker. So if they're passing at 65 or higher, that they can get off the ineligibility.
The only reason I'm asking is because I'm thinking to myself that we might have students that are academically ineligible right now, that they have no course of fixing the problem and they've been on quarantine several times. Is that accurate?
Correct. Those students could be purchased from this program so that even if they're out in quarantine, there's great discrepancy, they can still be part of this program and that can be the course of action for them to pass.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
I was just asking if we're holding, but there's nothing right now until this plan goes into.
Until this is in place, that is correct.
Okay, thank you, yes.
And I just wanted to mention that there's some funding for COVID response, and this is out of those grant funds that we're pulling the money for this. And I just wanted to make everybody aware of that it's not coming out of the general budget, it's coming out of some federal funds that are allocated to us.
Able to use those resources.
Question back there.
Yes?
Hi, I'm curious if this doesn't work and the students aren't responding well in that first pending period, will it be readdressed so that there's like a program where they can attend in person for tutoring? Because I feel, and a lot of other parents I've talked to feel like the Zoom thing didn't work for their kids.
Right,
I think, yeah, go
if
ahead.
they're failing because, if they're virtual because of COVID or quarantine and they're failing as a result of being virtual, a virtual option to get their grades back up is probably not going to be super effective.
So if I'm understanding correctly, and I'm trying to understand, you're talking about students who are quarantined?
No, their grades are
Mrs.
back.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Decker. I'll ask you to clarify in a second, but I'm trying to get her clarification of what she said just about virtual.
Right, so it seems like a lot of the kids that are failing due to COVID are failing because they've gotten quarantined due to COVID. And if they're at home and they're supposed to be doing a virtual option from home and they're still failing with that virtual option, they probably aren't going to be super responsive to another virtual option for 10 weeks if they weren't responsive to a virtual option.
Right, but there isn't a virtual option. So at this point in time, there's not a virtual option for those students, right? So we're trying to create another platform for our students to be able to access above and beyond the regular school day time. This is not only just because they're in quarantine, this could be because they have some kind of academic regression, right? So it could be, they might have been quarantined 2 weeks ago, but it's to try to catch those students up academically.
So these are kids that are back in school?
Correct, these are typically kids that are back in school.
I think the concern is that kids are struggling because we did a whole year virtual, and now for them to tutor, it's a virtual option as opposed to an in-person option, and they're concerned that it's just more of the same, and it's not going to produce results.
Yeah, so we actually offered the opportunity to do that virtually to ease up on both the staff as well as the students, to make it a little bit more easy, so when the kids get home, they actually have time to log back in and do that. I mean, we will consider in-person tutoring as well. We just haven't had anybody approach us. I mean, obviously we have 2 candidates for teachers at this point, one in the middle school and one in the high school. So there's not a lot of interest in that at this point. We might have to revisit the structure. I'm sorry.
I guess part of my question is, if we're going to be offering this as an option, would it be feasible for these kids while they're at home quarantining, even if they're not signed up for the whole 10 weeks of the tutoring program?
Yeah, so
Miss. Have that hour every night to interact with the tutor and get help they need so that they don't fall behind and we're not chasing our tail trying to catch them up.
So we're talking about 2 different programs at this point. We've certainly spent a lot of time discussing that exact model as well. We're not quite there yet with our structure. What we wanted to do is make sure that we had the academic intervention in place for all of our students who are struggling, and then we'll go back and build a program to develop out for the students under quarantine. There's been a lot of discussion on the back end about that currently. This is a program that we really felt that we needed to focus on at this point, so that we can make sure that we catch those students up who have regressed over the last 19 months. Okay.
It just seems like it would be easier to not let them regress further than to try and chase our tail catching them up after the fact. But anyways.
All right, I'm sorry, I don't know your name sitting next to Mrs. Decker. I
No,
didn't
you
mean to.
answered my question, you're fine.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you to the principals for your effort in putting this together, and everybody that worked with you. You did hear him mention about the digital equity survey that's out there, that's gone out to all parents. That's gonna be very important for feedback. It's no surprise to anyone here in Northern Cuyahoga County that we don't have the great, real good broadband in some ways. This is information that wants to be gathered, which can maybe help enhance that down the road. It's not gonna be next week, but it can be an opportunity to learn what's the real needs here in Northern Cuyahoga County. So please take that, that digital equity survey seriously and give your feedback. That's good on there.
Brad?
Yes.
So where can they find it?
And that is found on,
Well, you can contact me, and I can send them all.
yeah,
Via Parent Square,
under Parent Square.
and actually, we will be auditing who turned the survey in and who didn't, and we'll reach out to families that haven't, and we'll offer them again to send it again electronically, or we'll send it home with their student paper copy, and then we'll enter the data electronically for that.
Thank you.
So we're
Ms. Hay.
actually gonna be tracking this one, because we are trying to get 100% participation.
Yeah, the effort is to get 100% feedback from the district.
And the other piece, remember that this is a digital equity piece that we're sending out via technology, right? So it's kind of ironic a little bit, but if you are having technical issues doing that, please make sure you reach out to us, because we have other means to get those surveys out to you and get that data input into where we need it. So I think it's really important that everyone does that, because it's going to help drive some of the decisions made at the state education department level.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Cook?
So, could we possibly think about making some kind of a link on our webpage to, get some, like a link that will explain the digital equity, and maybe possibly find a way to link back in.
Yeah,
somehow to, I don't know, like I'm just trying to think of different avenues of publication.
So the state sent us a sample letter that they wanted schools to use, which we actually tailored to Red Creek, and we put that along with the link that was sent out on Parent Square. That's our platform that we put it on. We chose to go to Parent Square because it actually gave us the ability to track everything internally, where the school tool isn't really up and running to where we needed it to be at this point in time for that particular component. So our data coordinator, Stephanie Allen, she put it together on this. That's where she's able to track it and then pull it and then reach back out to those other people. So we'll be targeting the people who did not have the ability to fill it out or did not know. So the goal is to capture that. Absolutely, we can put a link up so that people can access it and have more information on it. It's a pretty lengthy document. Actually, I have a copy of it here somewhere, but it shows you the questions and everything right in the sample. I think you probably have seen it, Sue. So.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions, board, sir? I do want to thank all of you that came and spoke tonight. The information you shared with us, we'll be able to look at what we can do and how we can incorporate some of that. I also feel the importance to, on behalf of the board, to thank the staff, all the staff that helped move our students into safety yesterday, given the level of threat that was provided. It is an ongoing investigation, so there'll be more known down the road, but the fact was they did keep them safe. It might have been perfect, it wasn't perfect timing for everyone, we understand that, but the first part was the safety. So thank you to all the staff, administrators, teachers, buses, everybody that helped make that happen on behalf of the board. Do I have anything else on the board? Okay. Do I have a motion to go into executive session? Second. Yeah, we're going in for legal, personnel issues, and legal information to discuss. Thank you. All right, go home safely. And Mr. Nodine, second.
Thank you.